G'day legends, I hope that you're doing very well and thank you for coming and spending a bit of time with me again. Tomorrow is the 24th of February, marking 1 full year since the beginning of the Russian invasion in 2022 onto independent Ukraine. Although many would say that the invasion did not start then. The invasion started in 2014 and this was just a new wave of the attack. And people were saying that to me when I was in Ukraine previous to the invasion on the 24th, that we've already been invaded, but they may up the attacks. And last night, 2 explosions were heard in Russian-occupied Mariupol. Coming with this, lots of speculation as to what it was, because the distance could suggest some medium-range sort of missile, or maybe the drones that we've seen Ukraine use to attack deep into Russian territory, mainly the Engels Air Force bases in Russia, where they have their nuclear-capable attack bombers. But HIMARS have a range of about 80 kilometers. So what we're going to look at is why these rumors are popping up. So we've got the map open here. We've got Ukraine, Romania, Poland, Belarus, and Russia. And of course, the red is occupied since 2022, February 24th, a year ago tomorrow. And the darker red maroon is from 2014 as we spoke. And down here we have Mariupol, which Mariupol was really eye-opening in modern warfare as to the savagery of conventional war, mainly the Azovstal steelworks, where there was a number of soldiers, civilians that got caught out there and killed or taken prisoner, and it was war on a scale we hadn't seen in a long time, and that was where we really got this first look at it. So if what we want to do is we do a ruler from here to the border, if we can. So we're talking, let's say the closest-ish is like 70 kilometers. But you got to remember with HIMARS are like the most strategic asset, or one of at least. Let's go 75, that was a bit off there. One of the most strategic assets of the whole Ukrainian armed forces. And these aren't directly on the front line. They always hang back a little bit, so they don't risk them getting caught out and killed. So realistically, let's say they want to be like 10 Ks behind the front. So you're really talking, right on that upper limit. So potentially those rockets, but no one's really sure. But it's started this whole rumor mill around, some sort of medium range thing. But we've seen things like this before. Now let's go to Bakhmut, where we're seeing the most fierce fighting and some Russian advances in the past real 24 hours, and make a suggestion that yesterday we saw the Ukrainians do a southern advance, and reports from my people on the ground there talking about how Ukraine pushed back Russia that was almost up onto this road. So what we're going to look at though is northern Bakhmut, and you will see that there has been over the past 24 to 48 hours, there has been some Russian advance near Berkivka. So have a look, this was the 22nd, and then to the 23rd, we see more Russian advance up onto this road connecting Berkivka and Yahidny. Now, what I want to have a look on is I want to have a look on Google Maps and show you some of this and some of the terrain that the Russians may be looking at and see what it looks like into Bakhmut. This road here, donated in yellow as a main road, which is this one here, and then they're slightly different. So this is a yellow road here coming off on the Google map. So I want to see if we can drop down into here somewhere and have a look. So Google Maps isn't great in the east of Ukraine. I've tried to do this multiple times and it's not fantastic. So there is a spot where we can have a look down where this turns left and then turns right on this main road. Where we'd really like to look is in around here, but it's just not sadly going to happen. So as you can see here, we're on this left and then a right turn looking down sort of into Bakhmut, and let's straighten ourselves up a little bit. And what can we see? Can we just see some outlines of some buildings, as well as we're now looking straight down this road? And what we're looking for is what sort of terrain this is. It's fairly flat, sort of minimally treed, like there is some, but it's not like forest. And what we're really asking here is what the effects of artillery would be. And there are some rolling hills here, as you can see, but it's fairly flat open terrain. Let's have a look if we can see any better locations. So we've moved down onto near the I love Bakhmut sign, which is down to this main road, this main highway leading directly into Bakhmut, which we're around about here near Yahidny. Right, so this is the view that I really wanted to get. So as you can see here, they're looking across onto this road, which is the road here through Yahidny that connects to this main highway from this bend we were just looking at. And what we want to have a look at is, as my friend was saying, if the Russians can bring their guns up onto this road, it's going to create a lot of issues for this road through Kamove being the last supply route into Bakhmut. Although this road will say that it's not in occupied territory, the distance is very close and has apparently been under fire control now for some time. So let's have a look. So my little spinny man is, I believe, about 90 degrees off, because if you have a look on him, he's saying that I'm looking at the main road, which is over in this direction. But if I look straight down this road, and as you can see, there is, if you've got good eyes, you might just be able to see that there is a kink in this road, what is denoted by this. So we're just going to have to sort of go by eye here. So if we're looking directly in this direction, we are looking directly over the main road, and sadly behind this building we cannot see, but this is the direction of where the Russians are basically up to. Now let's have a look and see if we can see exactly where my little man is. So we are right here in claimed Russian controlled territory, looking into this direction. As you can see, it is fairly flat, some rolling hills, and I believe if we look this way, denoted by the 90 degrees offside here, this is looking basically directly down into Bakhmut. And as you can see, some of the higher rise buildings here. So as you can see, it's fairly flat on the way in, and over here, which is into the Ukrainian held territory to the west of Bakhmut, you can see these rolling hills begin, but you can see that it is a fairly straight shot run in. And as my friend was saying, if over in this direction where we're looking at that road, that this is a problem if Russia get their guns up into this area. So I just want to get us into another position where we're in the middle of Bakhmut, up high, and have a look over some of these positions. Now, again, my little spinny man here, he's pretty much on a good course. So what we're looking down here is we're looking in Ukrainian held territory towards the river, runs through here, as you can see down the bottom here. And this is on the other side, the eastern side, which is more the Russian-controlled region, or at least the claimed. So we are in around the center of Bakhmut, around this region here, looking across into the Russian control. And as you can see, there is some level of hills, and any hill can make it a lot more difficult for spotting, targeting, and using artillery, which we have seen the Russians bring into the fight so much. Sadly, this city will look nothing like this anymore, as we're looking directly down this road, and the reservoir is over in this direction that we keep talking about. But that is some level of what we are seeing on the ground and the sort of terrain that they're fighting through. Now, in a report from Wagner Group, being on this map that came out, they said that they have, quote, flattened Vatuchina Lane. Now, I've looked this up on Google Maps. We've got Bakhmut, we're talking about up here, we're looking around in this region, and this Vatuchina Lane, they said that they have flattened. And we will see as well on the map that Russia, over the past 24 hours, did make more ground in through this region. This is the lane we're talking about, and they're moving through these blocks right up to the river in which we were looking at. Now, this lane, let's see if we can have a look at what this looks like, what they're fighting through. So we don't have the best view in the world, but as you can see, children's playground, people living, some high-rise building blocks, and this is the best view we're going to get. But according to the Russian sources, they completely flattened this street. My friend says too, with Bakhmut, that Russia is changing their axis again and again, which is making it very hard for the Russians to attack, but also very hard to defend because you're defending against one axis and it keeps changing, particularly in the south here. But we can see there has been some movement to the north and west. Now, Prigozhin, the founder of Russia's Wagner group, yesterday has criticized Russia's defense ministry for not providing his troops with enough ammunition. He's accused the chief of the general staff and the defense minister for withholding ammunition and supplies from his fighters to try and then destroy Wagner Group, arguing that it was treason. Reportedly as well, the Russian forces are attacking a forest west and south of Dobrova, although the map does not reflect this, but they have claimed a few hundred meters. So we'll move into this region of Dobrova. Now, as you can see, the map does not reflect this, but they're saying that to the west and south of Kuzuman and Dobrova, so the south and the west, that they are moving forward. Now, what I want to have a look at and see is if any other maps reflect this. So we're here on the ISW map, and we've got Dobrova. So as a reference point, we'll take this dotted line on the edge of the oblast. So the ISW is suggesting that they're well past on this. If we have a look at this sort of right angle west to north, so we're talking in here that that the Russian forces are claiming more, that the Russian forces have assessed more territory in around this region. So as you can see that there's more Russian claimed control and control on the ISW map compared to the deep state. We may see this update the next 24 hours if these claims are true. Now, Russian sources are claiming that Ukraine is moving lots of resource towards Moldova, although I have not seen any evidence of this other than claim, in particularly Transnistria. Now, what is this? So, as you'll say, if we're going to look at the map, and I've had people ask me about it, why is there this red occupied territory down here on the border between Moldova and Ukraine? Like, what's going on in here? Now, this is Transnistria. Now, this is a claimed independent area called Transnistria. Now, since the beginning of the war, Russian officials and supporters have suggested a land bridge between Russian-occupied territory and Transnistria, which you could see the problem if it comes from here near Kherson all the way through that cuts off Odessa. This completely cuts off Ukraine's access to the Black Sea and any hope of sea export. Although if this was the plan, this plan was spoiled by Ukrainian counteroffensives and then their success in the Kherson Oblast, in this region where this was Russia controlled, and then Ukraine's pushed them back on the north side of the Dnipro River. Now, what is Transnistria? Although this border is internationally recognized as Moldova, this whole region here, Transnistria is an unrecognised breakaway state since the Transnistrian War in 1992, a year after the Soviet Union collapsed. In this region, there's a Russian military garrison which consists of about 1,500 troops, and one of their primary missions is to guard the Kobazna ammunition depot, which apparently stores up to 20,000 tons of Soviet-era weaponry. Now, why has this just become relevant in the past, 10 or so hours? Well, over just that past 10 hours, Putin has revoked a 2012 decree that recognises Moldova's sovereignty in regards to Transnistria. The sovereignty saying this is separate to this, although any international border says that it's all part of Moldova, which comes from increased accusations from the Moldovan government that Russia is seeking to destabilise the country. Now, from Atlas News, the decree which affirmed Russia's commitment to find a solution to the Transnistrian conflict that would respect the territorial integrity and neutrality of the Republic of Moldova in setting up a special status for Transnistria was annulled in order to ensure the national interest of the Russian Federation in connection with the profound changes taking place in international relations. Now, the Moldovan government is accusing Russia of planning on carrying out a coup to overthrow the government, which has become increasingly pro-European Union, and invading the country next door, I'm sure, has had some influence on this decision. They're also accusing this coup that could potentially stop the country from joining the EU, stating that authorities are aware of plans of destabilisation in Moldova for the near future. Actions are planned involving military-trained saboteurs who will attack state buildings by taking hostages. Now, could this open up another front line potentially? Well, Russia doesn't have that many people in there unless they can find some way to, reinforce the people here. But in a military coup, we could see a complete separate. In a military coup, we could see this situation change very quickly. But something to state on this is Russia has worse technology, but a lot more equipment and more bodies to use for the war. Now, also the various training from good soldiers, and people will say we haven't seen this. We have seen well-trained Russian soldiers. Yes, few and far between, but we have seen that. But we have also seen soldiers used as, quote, meat, just as a body on the front to draw fire down. But where I bring this up is Russia has lots of them. Could they potentially, by opening up more frontline areas, maybe down here or to, near Belarus, to thin out Ukrainians' superior technology? And why I bring this up is Ukraine, say when we have these Leopard tanks, will have, 100 better tanks than the Russians. But the Russians will have a lot more of them. So Ukraine will have to be more strategic of where they put these assets rather than just having 1,000 tanks and just scatter them across the front line. Now, of course, Russia's losses are going to be huge doing this, but it could thin out potential areas where Russia could take ground. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak on February 22nd says that providing long-range weapons to Ukraine could give the country a decisive advantage on the battlefield. This comes after on February 8th, where Sunak announced that the UK would provide longer-range weapons to Ukraine. However, it was not stated what kind of missiles he was referring to or when they would arrive. Now, the options that are getting thrown around are the Harpoon missiles, which have a maximum range of 240 kilometers, and the Storm Shadow missiles, which can hit targets up to 560 kilometers. Although the export versions will have a different range that isn't stated, at least that I can find. Sunak was quoted saying, "One of the things that could change the situation on the ground is the provision of more long-range weapons." He continues saying, "I believe that if we increase and accelerate our support to Ukraine, we can give the country the means to gain a decisive advantage on the battlefield much earlier. That's why we need to provide support now, and the right kind of support, so that Ukraine can not only defend its territory, but also fight back against Russia." Reuters reported yesterday the European Union member states have failed to reach an agreement to impose new sanctions against Russia. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that the proposed sanctions package would help restrict 11 billion euros worth of multiple electronic components used in Russian weapons such as drones, missiles and helicopters via trade bans and technology controls. Although the diplomats didn't come to an agreement, they are confident an agreement will come through quickly, saying it will be reached quickly tomorrow. We have talked before how the first days of the Russian invasion, Zelensky signed that Ukrainian authorities allowed officials not to file electronic asset declarations and shut down public access to all previous declarations, and that officials will only have to resume submitting asset declarations within 3 months after the end of the war. President Volodymyr Zelensky said on February 22nd that a bill had been registered by an MP to resume the requirement for state officials to file electronic asset declarations. This comes after a petition for resuming the filing of asset declarations. The petition, which we've talked about before, collected the necessary 25,000 signatures on the president's site in early February. Civic watchdogs say that Ukrainians' asset declaration system was a key pillar of the anti-corruption infrastructure, has been effectively destroyed, with martial law used as a pretext by corrupt officials. This will make all future contests by government jobs meaningless, the watchdogs argue. Now, it is good to see that this decision will be turned over, and if we'll see anything come out of this, I am unsure, although we have seen some level of cleaning out of the ranks over the past month of Zelensky firing and investigating a lot of senior members of the cabinet. Now, that's me for today, so thank you very much. I really appreciate your ongoing support. If you'd like to support me more, there's links below, but never feel obliged at all. So thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.